The voice on the phone was shaking, like it knew it shouldn't be speaking at all. It said, "Don't watch it. Don't click the link." My name wasn't mentioned, but my stomach knew it was for me. I didn't ask who they were. I just listened to the ragged breath until it cut out. The laptop screen glowed in the dark like it was waiting for me. The email's subject line was a dare. "Watch your future." I stared at it, feeling the rain pressing on the glass behind me. The clock read 2:14 a.m., but it felt later. I didn't open it. Not yet. The air in the room felt thinner, like the walls had leaned closer without moving. I reached for my coffee mug and realized my hand was trembling. Somewhere outside, a siren moaned and faded. My phone buzzed once, a message from a blocked number. "You were already in it." The apartment smelled faintly of rain-soaked concrete. I set the mug down and stared at the message again. My reflection in the laptop looked older than I remembered. I thought about calling someone, anyone, but the idea of explaining felt impossible. Mara said, "It's just spam, just delete it." My voice sounded thin, not convincing even to me. The room seemed too quiet after the words, as though it was waiting. I clicked to check the sender. No name, no history. The email had been sent exactly 1 minute ago. And yet, the message on my phone had come before it. I told myself not to open it, but the mouse moved anyway. The click was louder than it should have been. The email body was empty. Just a single hyperlink, underlined in red. My pulse jumped. I hovered the cursor over it, watching the link preview at the bottom of the screen. A string of numbers and letters, nothing that made sense. Mara whispered, "You don't have to." I didn't remember speaking out loud before that moment. The link didn't open a browser. It opened a video player instantly. Black screen, at first. No buffering. Then a faint, shaky image emerged. A dim hallway I didn't recognize, wet footprints leading toward a half-open door. My breathing cinched with the uneven camera movement, like the person filming was unsteady. The door in the video opened slowly. A figure stepped into view, hood up, face hidden. They placed a phone on the floor, screen lit. The video's audio crackled, and I heard my own voice from the phone's speaker, "You're already in it." My chest tightened. The camera tilted, showing a clock on the wall, 2:14 a.m. The video lurched again, and the hallway resolved into details I knew too well. The scuffed baseboards. The crooked exit sign. The damp rug outside apartment 4B. Mara said, "It's my building." The word landed, like a bruise. I paused the player, and the frame froze on wet prints leading toward my floor. Somewhere above me, a pipe thumped, like the building had a pulse. I muted the sound, and still heard the hiss of rain. I wanted to deny it, but denial felt childish. The clock on the wall in the video advanced a minute. Mine matched it exactly. Shame crept in, old and practiced, like I had been caught reading a diary I wrote to hurt myself. I told the empty room, "This is a prank." The lie tasted thin. I remembered a promise I made years ago and did not keep. The cursor hovered over the timeline, and I dragged it forward an inch. The door at the end of the hall was mine. The handle twitched. I let the video play again, needing proof it would repeat the same dread. The camera turned, slow as guilt, and I heard footsteps that didn't belong to me. My phone vibrated with a new message from the same blocked number. "Answer the door in 30 seconds. Mara said, "No." I stood very still, counting my breaths. 20 seconds crawled past like wet thread. A knock came, soft but certain. I muted the video again, and the knock continued, steady, patient. I wanted to pretend I wasn't home, yet the screen showed my door already opening. I felt the old lesson of silence rising, the one that says survival is staying small. I broke it. I asked, "Who is it?" A voice answered through the wood, almost kind. "Future delivery." I hated the way my chest fluttered like it recognized the tone. I opened the door on the chain and met no one. The hallway hummed with fluorescent fatigue. On the floor lay a thin envelope, unmarked, damp at the edges. I picked it up with 2 fingers. Inside was a photo printed on cheap paper, my living room as it looked right now, and me in the frame, except the me in the photo was turned toward the couch. I looked at the couch and saw nothing there. The photo version of me was reaching for something beneath a cushion. Mara said, "This is staged." My voice wanted to be rational, my hands shook like liars. I tucked the envelope under my arm and lifted the cushion. A second phone waited there, face down, inert and heavy with intention. Shame told me I had invited this once, in a different life. I pressed the side button. The screen lit with a locked message, "Play me when you're alone." I locked the door, slid the chain, and stood very still with 2 phones and 1 doubt. The second phone opened without a passcode when I swiped. A video autoplayed, date stamped for tonight, time stamped 5 minutes from now. The frame showed me from across the room, framed by my own window like a ghost in a tank. I watched future me answer a call on this new device. My throat tightened. I said, "This ends if I don't press play." The logic failed as the timeline advanced on its own. The volume rose, even though I hadn't touched it. Future me lifted the phone and said, "Okay." The sound of my agreement made my shoulders sag. I wanted to throw the thing out the window, but the rain would only make it cleaner. Silence swelled, then a caller ID slid into view. Lena. I had not said her name in months. The real phone rang exactly when the video said it would. I did not press anything. The call crawled through the room anyway, patient as mole. I answered. Lena said, "You got my package." Her voice hadn't changed, which hurt more than it should. I could smell the old apartment we once shared just from how she breathed. I said, "What is this?" She paused too long. "You asked to forget," she said. "I'm reminding you what forgetting costs." I looked at the envelope like it could explain us. I said, "Why now?" She said, "Because you're almost ready to tell the truth." The second phone chimed with a notification, a calendar event titled, "Return." I felt something tilt inside me, the old promise unsealing. I asked, softer than I meant, "What did I do?" Lena exhaled, brittle, and answered, "You didn't lose her." The call stayed open like an old wound that refused to clot, and I let it bleed. Lena said, "You know who I mean." I tried to stall, but the room answered for me with its aching quiet. The second phone chimed again, and a new video cued itself. It showed my hallway from a low angle, like a child's view, and my door beginning to open. Mara said, "If I hang up, this stops." The video's timeline advanced as if my defiance were a button it enjoyed pressing. Lena said, "You asked for mercy, remember?" The word made my mouth go dry because I did remember asking, just not when. I scrubbed the clip backward and saw a note taped under my peephole. The camera pushed in until the ink filled the screen. It read downstairs. Unit 17. My chest tightened with a memory of damp concrete and the smell of detergent. Mara said, "If I go, you talk." Lena said, "If you face it, I will." The stairwell felt colder than the weather could justify, and my breath ghosted the metal rail. The power hummed like a bored bee behind the walls, counting my steps. Mara said, "You wanted me to remember suffering, not truth." The word bounced down the concrete throat and didn't come back. Lena said, "Truth is the only mercy left." I reached the basement door and touched the peeling paint like it could absolve me. A fluorescent bulb flickered and then steadied, as if deciding to watch. The second phone vibrated with a calendar reminder, "Return," and I hated the way the word fit my feet. I pushed through and let the smell of detergent and wet cardboard knock at old doors in me. Mara said, "If Unit 17 is empty, we stop." My voice wanted to be iron and sounded like paper. The basement corridor stretched in a cheap dream, chain-link cages crouched like ribs. Water ticked from a pipe with a patience I envied. Unit numbers stamped on tin tags made a stuttered countdown toward 17. Mara said, "No one else is here." The air disagreed with a scuff I could not place. I knelt at 17 and found a dull padlock, its steel warmed by the room like a pulse. I tried the date I had been avoiding since 2:14 lit my screen. The shackle popped with a sound like a small admission. I lifted the roll-up door, and the metal groaned like it remembered me. Inside, a single plastic tote waited in the center like a chosen chair. My stomach folded itself into careful shapes. Mara said, "I never wanted souvenirs." I pried the lid and a quiet rose like dust, soft and choking. Inside were things I had trained myself never to see. A folded form with my signature in a smaller, braver hand. A photograph of a door I remember leaving through without turning back. A knitted cap, the color of early lemons, small as a held breath. Mara said, "This is Lena's cruelty." The second phone woke and offered a file stamped with a date I tried to lose. It played without consent. The frame held me and Lena at a dim table years ago, both of us thinner and pretending at wisdom. My face was set in a way I do not own now. I heard myself say, "I can't carry this and survive." Lena said, in the video, "Then we carry it together." The promise fell out of the screen and cracked at my feet. The video shifted to a second clip, and I flinched like it slapped me. I watched younger me sign a line while Lena held my wrist to steady the shake. The camera caught the way. I avoided the word printed above the signature. The room in the recording smelled like lemon cleaner and a kind clerk's tired hope. Mara said, "I thought we were saving a life." The basement echoed with the sentence, as if it had not been said before. On the phone, a text arrived from the blocked number, "Stop saying lost." My throat closed on a protest that was already a lie. Lena said, on the live call, "You're close." I pressed the heel of my hand to my eyes, and saw the shape of a door through the red. Mara said, "If I say it, it becomes real." Silence answered like an open gate. The basement door shut behind me, and the echoes stacked like accusations. The tote felt heavier than plastic should, as if it carried weather. Lena said, "Take the cap." I slid it into my pocket like a live coal. The second phone pulsed with a map in that hadn't existed an hour ago. It read, "Annex, South Entrance." Mara said, "You planned this like a memorial." The elevator mirror showed me both younger and older, forked by fluorescent glare. I stared at my throat and saw a small throb of fear I once called faith. The doors opened, and the hallway greeted me like a mouth. Rain hammered the building's skin, and the pipes replied in little shivers. Lena said, "I will not say the name for you." The calendar alert bloomed again, and would not dismiss. It read, "Return, 2:14. Mara said, "I am walking." I gripped the tote and moved. The street pressed against me with wet hands and neon breath. Headlights slid over puddles like impatient moons. Mara said, "Tell me what waits at the annex." Lena kept her silence like a blade she knew well. The map arrow turned my steps into orders, and I obeyed. I passed our old bakery and smelled sugar I could not afford then. Rain found my collar and wrote little sermons down my spine. A bus roared by and blurred the world to one smear. The second phone kept me on a thin blue leash. I thought of the clerk's tired hope and the paper that taught me to live. Shame paced beside me and matched my stride. I wanted to be braver than the night and failed. The annex rose from fog like a reprimand. Lena said, "This is where you chose breath over belonging." The annex lobby smelled like lemon cleaner and paperwork that forgives nothing. A security camera blinked with patient memory. I stood on old scuffs shaped like waiting. Mara said, "No one is here." The receptionist's desk carried a sign that read, "Closed after hours." The second phone ignored it and offered a recorded bell tone from years ago. The video showed us seated at a table under fluorescent mercy. Young me signed while Lena watched my face too closely. I saw the word above the line again, and my eyes skittered. The frame froze on my hand, and I thought it looked like a thief's. Lena said, "We promised to carry it." I said, "I dropped it." The echo turned the confession into a siren I could not outrun. Somewhere a printer woke, and then died. The video advanced without my touch, and found the moment my mouth moved. I could hear the breath I took before betraying myself. The room in the clip was bright and empty of kindness. Lena said, "Say it now." I wanted to spit back anger and found only salt. The lobby lights above me hummed like a dare. I swallowed and met the screen like a mirror that punishes. Mara said, "I didn't lose her, I gave her away." The sentence was a door I had kept nailed shut, and the nails finally sang. The lobby seemed larger after it left me. Lena breathed once, sharp, as if surfacing. My knees wanted to fold, and I told them no. The second phone displayed a simple text I had earned. It said finally. Shame retreated a step and left space for grief. The doors unlocked with a soft electronic sigh I did not deserve. A hallway light flickered alive and traced a path I remembered in bones. Lena said, "One more step." I followed the glow to a small meeting room with a window that faced nothing. On the table lay a sealed envelope with my name in a careful hand. The second phone vibrated with a new clip titled Tomorrow, 2:14. I pressed play and saw a school gate bright with noon. A girl lifted her head as if hearing a call, and she had my eyes. The caption read, "She was never missing." The lobby clock behind me ticked like a countdown I had started years ago. Mara said, "If I open this, I become the person who left and the person who stayed." The rain slowed, as if listening. I broke the seal, and the envelope exhaled paper and old air like something buried too shallow. Inside lay a keycard, a photocopy of my signature, and a note printed in the same careful hand. It read, "Arrive early, keep distance, do not speak her name until invited." It also read, "If you lie, the video resumes." Mara said, "You do not command me," and my voice sounded like a match in rain. The second phone pulsed with the Tomorrow clip and would not close when I swiped. I studied the school gate frame until the pixels felt like splinters under skin. The girl's eyes were mine, steady and unafraid, and that steadiness accused me. Lena said, "Go home for now," as if home had not been turned into a witness. I slid the lemon cap into my pocket and felt the weight of vows I had dodged. The lobby swallowed my footsteps and returned them thinner. At the door, I said, "I will stand outside the fence," and silence finally agreed. Night folded itself into a grim dawn that forgot to be pink. The rain thinned to mist and left the streets hushed like a held breath. I laid the papers on the table and forced my eyes to read every line I once outran. The signature did not move, but my memory did, like water finding a lower path. Mara said, "You can still stay away," and I almost believed the coward in me. I put on a dry hoodie and hid the cap in the inside pocket like contraband hope. The second phone offered a route and a timer that ticked in my ribs. I called Lena and reached only the mile of her recorded calm. She said, "Boundaries protect what you love," and I shut the message before it finished. I pocketed both phones, checked the time and locked the door with both hands. The hallway smelled of last night and of newer choices. The elevator sighed like a tired witness and carried me toward noon. Noon made a pale coin of the sun and spent it all on the schoolyard fence. The air hummed with children and dust and the low music of swings. I stood outside the bars where the city ended and smaller worlds began. The timer on the second phone bled down its seconds in a soft countdown. Mara said, "If she looks at you, do not steal anything from her with your need." A teacher lifted a hand at the bell and opened the gate with easy ritual. The girl stepped into the light with a serious mouth and hair braided tight. She had my eyes, and they did not search for me because they did not know me. Shame tried to kneel me. I stayed standing by sheer argument with gravity. Lena stood across the street and watched me like someone measuring wind. The girl laughed at something small and the sound made my teeth ache. The timer reached 2:14, and then went quiet, like an agreement kept. Lena crossed to me only when the crowd thinned and the noise gentled. She wore the same careful face she once used to guide me through storms. Mara said, "You carried her." And I left, and the admission cleared a path. Lena said, "You asked me to carry until you could stand," and her voice held no triumph. I said, "Who does she call you?" and I hated the answer before it arrived. Lena said, "She calls me Mom," and the word landed with the weight of a church. For a moment I wanted to steal time and make it apologize for choosing sides. Lena looked at my pocket like she could see the lemon cap burning there. She said, "Not today," and the gentleness in it hurt more than refusal. Mara said, "I can take the blame without taking her," and the truth surprised me. The second phone vibrated with a new event called Witness. Lena nodded toward the gate and said, "Then watch me love her, and do not lie." The gate released them in small pairs, stories holding hands with backpacks. Lena knelt to the girl, and her posture became something tender and exact. I watched the choreography I had forfeited and took each step like medicine. The girl spoke a secret into Lena's ear, and they laughed with quiet conspiracy. Mara said, "I am not a thief," and my body obeyed though my heart reached. A gust lifted the girl's hair, and for a heartbeat, our eyes crossed an invisible wire. She looked past me, uninterested, and relief flooded my knees like heat. The second phone recorded nothing dramatic, only breathing and the known world. Lena rose and met my gaze, and there was both forgiveness and a locked door in it. She mouthed, "Tomorrow," and the calendar ticked another 2:14 into place. I pressed the cap against my ribs through cloth until it remembered my shape. Ow. When they turned the corner, the street felt honest and far away from rescue. The apartment held a quiet that felt rehearsed, like it had practiced my return. The link refreshed itself and offered a new thumbnail that looked like a dare. The second phone buzzed with a file titled Practice, and began to play. Mara said, "Stop coaching me," and my voice cracked on the last word. The video showed my face months younger, repeating a sentence until it fit. I watched myself say, "You will not ask for what you gave away," and I flinched. A half bottle waited under the sink like an old friend I had not blocked. I poured it out, and the smell rose mean and sweet and undeserved. I texted Lena and wrote, "Laundry on Pike, in 20, and pressed send. The timer found 2:14 in the corner and blinked as if it recognized me. I put the cap in my pocket and felt the weight of a small head that would not be mine. Mara said, "I will go and I will not steal mercy," and I believed it for once. The hallway beyond my door breathed in, and the latch agreed to let me leave. The laundromat blinked like a tired aquarium of shirts and ghosts. Machines churned with a low storm and quarters clicked in their spinning throats. Lena sat on a plastic chair and kept her hands folded like she was holding a door. Mara said, "Was it you?" and the washers swallowed the softness in the question. Lena said, "I sent the link," and the sentence unclenched something painful and precise. She did not apologize, and I did not demand one. I watched a red shirt smear the window into an unkind sunrise. She said, "You told me to pull you back if you ran far enough." I saw the night I gave her that order and tasted pennies and fear. Mara said, "You used my voice because I would answer me," and she nodded. The second phone sat between us and pretended to be neutral. A dryer door thumped like a late heartbeat and fell still. I said, "Then say what you are about to make me say," and Lena only breathed. I sat across from her and the chair squealed like it hated choosing sides. The second phone lit a clip I had not seen, and the title was a date we avoided. The video found a room with lemon cleaner and forms that felt heavier than paper. Younger me held a pen like a weapon she could not turn outward. Mara said, "I was 3 days sober," and the words dragged grit behind them. Lena said, "You were also terrified of becoming your mother," and I nodded. I remembered the sound a door makes when you close it and leave a life inside. The clip paused on a birth certificate, and the timestamp read 2:14. My stomach folded around the number like it had always known its shape. I said, "That is why the time hunts me, and the shame blinked." A washer beeped merrily, and did not know our dead. Lena watched me like someone counting to a difficult mercy. She said, "Say it without bleeding out," and I tried. I made the sentence, and it walked out of me like a stubborn child. Mara said, "I did not lose her. I gave her away because I was not safe," and the room changed. Something sacred cracked, and the fantasy of reunion leaked out quietly. I wanted to snatch it back, to bargain, to invent a softer past. Lena said, "You asked me to hold the line even if you hated me." The second phone vibrated, and played a call I did not remember recording. My own voice said, "If I am running, tell me I am already in it," and I understood. I had given my future self a trap, and handed Lena the rope. The laundromat became honest and small and unfriendly. I stood, and the cap ghosted against my ribs like a question. Mara said, "I want to see her," and Lena shook her head. She said, "Not as a debt payment, not tonight," and the door in me closed with a clean click. I swallowed, and did not break. The rain had softened to a mist that made the parking lot shine like a careful warning. We stepped outside, and the night felt thinner, as if it had used itself up. Lena said, "If you want a path, it will cost time you cannot rush." I waited for punishment and received architecture instead. She said, "Meet us at the fence on Fridays, say nothing unless she invites it." The second phone lit with a shared calendar, and added witness in repeating blue. Mara said, "What about the cap?" and I hated the hope in the question. Lena answered when she asks for her beginning, "You can show it," and looked away. The number 214 glowed on a dark screen, like a small lighthouse with rules. I said I will not call it mercy, I will call it work, and my voice steadied. A bus sighed past, and smeared our reflections across its windows. We watched ourselves shiver, and hold still and not run. The night closed its hand around the lot, and did not squeeze. Friday arrived thin and bright, and the sky forgot last night's anger. The link refreshed like a habit I had not broken yet. A new clip waited with a thumbnail of the school fence. Mara said, "Not today," and the words steadied my breath. The timer slid toward 2:14, like it had rails under it. I stood where the sidewalk turns into childhood and kept my hands still. Lena watched from across the street, and her nod was a small anchor. The clip opened by itself and showed me stepping forward too soon. The future me in the video said a name that was not hers to take. The image froze on the girl's face, startled and closing like a fist. Shame tried to script me, and I tore the page in half. Mara said, "I will not rob her of safety to feed my hunger." The bell rang, the gate opened, and the living world drowned the video. I let the phone go dark and I chose to wait. The afternoon meeting room at the annex was the color of decisions no one celebrates. A clock ticked like a metronome for truths. A caseworker hovered and then vanished, leaving the air strict and polite. Mara said, "I want a word that admits blood and time." Lena said, "You want a word that erases labor." My voice rose with a heat I had hidden behind rain. I said, "I left because I was a fire." Lena said, "I stayed and learned water." Something sacred cracked in the middle of the table. It was the story where reunion fixes the past. We both stared at the pieces and did not try to glue them. Lena said, "If you take the name back, you steal her history." I said, "Then I will stand beside it and not pretend." The caseworker returned with paperwork that felt like glass. We signed boundaries that made sense and hurt, and the hurt was honest. Night came clean and sharp, and my apartment listened like a witness sworn in. The link pulsed, certain it could still own me. The second phone offered a blank recording window titled "Tell the Truth." Mara said, "I will speak and not demand a reward." I set the lemon cap on the desk like a lantern and hit record. I said, "I was not stolen from, I chose the loss to keep you safe." The words burned and did not kill me. I said, I will not step in front of your mother to audition for a part I quit. My voice shook and stood anyway. I said, if you ever want the beginning, I will bring it, and I will not ask you to comfort me. The room grew larger, and the link seemed smaller than furniture. I saved the file as witness and dragged the old videos to trash. The laptop fan sighed like a curtain falling, and I let the stage go dark. A week later, the fence shone like a measured promise. The bells sang, and the world rearranged itself into pairs again. I stood where patience lives, and held my place. The girl paused by the gate, and tilted her head with scientific seriousness. She looked at my pocket like she could hear cloth remembering. She said, "Is that a hat?" And the question opened a small lawful door. Lena watched, ready to close what needed closing. Mara said, "It is a hat for little storms," and I waited. The girl smiled like she enjoyed the idea of weather behaving. She said, "I like lemon things," and I let the knowledge land. I did not tell her who taught me to knit in a halfway kitchen. I did not steal a title that belonged to her days. Lena nodded once, and the gate swung back to ordinary. Home again. The room felt smaller and kinder, because it was honest. I opened the drawer and lined the papers like bones that finally rested. The lemon cap lay on top, bright as a kept promise, and heavy as a cost. The second phone showed a calendar full of Fridays that would ask nothing dramatic. The link sat in the inbox, patient and hungry. Mara said, "You do not get me anymore," and I deleted it. The silence that followed was not empty. It held work and it held rules. Rain began again, softer, like it was practicing leaving. I set an alarm for 2:14 and renamed it, "Stand Back and Stay." The apartment breathed in and out, and did not ask for applause. I turned off the lamp, and the window kept a little light for me. I sat beside the desk and let the truth settle where the story had lived. I said the last line to the night and to the future that watched. I said, "I won't ask you to forgive me.